I will use the crushing injustice formula for this story. This structure is the perfect fit because the title promises a blatant act of disrespect, followed by a quiet, calculated, and ultimately triumphant act of justice. It will take the viewer from anger at the initial insult, through pain as they understand the depth of the betrayal, to hope as the protagonist begins her quiet plan, culminating in triumph and inspiration when she cancels everything and reclaims her power. Here is the story, divided into 4 parts. Part 1. The Insult. The air in the country club's grand ballroom was thick with the scent of gardenias and expensive perfume. Eleanor Vance, a woman of 62 with silver-streaked hair and the quiet dignity of someone who had built a business from the ground up, stood at the threshold, her heart swelling with a love so fierce it almost hurt. This was her daughter's day. Ava, her brilliant, beautiful Ava, was getting married. She smoothed the skirt of her blush-pink dress, a subtle nod to the mother-of-the-bride tradition she had been so excited to embrace. She saw her daughter across the room, radiant in white, laughing with her bridesmaids. Eleanor took a step forward, her arms already opening for a hug, when a firm hand landed on her shoulder. "Mrs. Vance? I'm Derek, the wedding planner," a young man in a headset said, his smile professional but cold. "We need to get you situated." Before she could respond, he was steering her, not toward the main ballroom floor with its round tables and centerpieces, but through a side door, past a bustling kitchen filled with the clatter of pans and shouting chefs, and into a small, windowless anteroom. It was a staging area. A table with a cracked laminate surface held a stack of paper napkins and extra silverware. A single, rickety folding chair sat next to it. "Here we are," Derek chirped, gesturing to the chair. "You'll have a great view of the buffet line from here. Helps with the flow." Eleanor's smile froze on her face. She looked past him, through the open door, to the main ballroom. There, at the head table, sat her ex-husband, Richard, with his new, much younger wife, Tiffany. They were laughing, being served champagne. There was her son, Michael, and his wife, all at the main table. Her seat was in the kitchen. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for Ava. Their eyes finally met. For a fleeting second, Eleanor saw a flicker of guilt in her daughter's gaze before Ava looked away, turning back to her groom, a slick-haired real estate developer named Bradley Thornton III. It was then Eleanor saw the seating chart. A large, ornate board propped by the entrance. She walked over, Derek trailing her with a nervous, "Ma'am?" Her finger traced down the list. There it was, Table 12, the kitchen anteroom. And under it a single name, Eleanor Vance. The message was as clear as it was brutal. The woman who had raised Ava alone after Richard ran off with his secretary, who had worked 16-hour days to pay for her braces, her private school, her college tuition, the woman who had given her everything, was an embarrassment to be hidden away. A hot wave of betrayal washed over her, so potent it made her dizzy. She thought of the check she had written for this wedding just 3 months ago, a check that had cleared 2 days later. She thought of Bradley's family, the old money Thorntons, who had looked at her calloused hands and practical car with barely concealed disdain. Derek cleared his throat. "Mrs. Vance? If you could just—" Eleanor turned to him. The shock was gone. In its place was a cold, crystalline clarity. She drew in a slow, deep breath. Her face, which had been moments from crumbling, settled into a placid, unreadable mask. She walked back to the folding chair, sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and smiled. "Of course," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever the bride wants." Part 2. The Quiet Storm. For the next 2 hours, Eleanor remained in her chair. She smiled as the kitchen staff rushed by. She smiled as she watched through the doorway, seeing the speeches, the toasts. She smiled when Richard, her ex-husband, gave a heartfelt speech about his little girl, conveniently omitting the years he was absent. She watched her son, Michael, walk past the kitchen door without a second glance. She watched her new in-laws, the Thorntons, hold court at the main table, their laughter a sharp contrast to the clatter of dirty dishes being scraped and stacked just feet away from her. And all the while, her phone was in her lap, hidden beneath the table. Her thumbs moved with purpose, not anger. First, she texted the bank's fraud department a number she knew by heart. Asterisk, please freeze all outgoing payments from account ending in 7842. Authorized by account holder, Eleanor Vance. I will call to confirm. Asterisk. Next, she texted her accountant, a gruff but loyal man named Bill. Asterisk, Bill, the payment to Thornton Blackwood Wedding Fund is to be reversed immediately. All other payments to venues, florists, and vendors associated with the Vance Thornton event are to be put on hold pending my direct authorization. Asterisk. She then opened her email. She had kept every receipt, every contract, every agreement for this wedding. She had copies of the contracts she had signed with the caterer, the band, the photographer, and the venue. She had paid the deposits. She had paid the final balances. Her signature was on every dotted line. She began forwarding them to her attorney, Sarah Jenkins, with a simple note. Asterisk, Sarah, I am withdrawing my financial backing. Please advise on the legalities of canceling these contracts as the sole signatory and payer.
Urgent astérisque.
Each email sent was a tiny, quiet explosion. With each tap of her screen, she was dismantling the day, thread by thread. She wasn't acting out of malice. She was acting out of a profound, deep-seated realization. She had been used. Her love had been monetized, her presence erased, her dignity discarded. She was not a mother to be honored. She was an ATM to be hidden in the back. A young waitress, her face flushed with sympathy, came by with a plate of the seared scallops and risotto that was being served in the main hall. Ma'am, the chef said you should have something hot. Eleanor looked at the plate, then at the waitress. Thank you, dear, she said, her voice soft. She ate her meal in the kitchen, savoring every bite, not of the food, but of the quiet power she was wielding. She was not creating a scene. She was not crying. She was simply erasing herself and everything she had paid for from their perfect picture. The final text went to her son, Michael. Asterisk, meet me in the parking lot in 5 minutes. Don't tell anyone, asterisk. Part 3. The cancellation. Michael found her standing by her modest sedan, his face a mixture of confusion and irritation. Mom, what's going on? The band is about to start. Eleanor looked at her son. He had his father's eyes. He had also, she realized, his father's sense of entitlement. He had stood by and watched his sister relegate their mother to a broom closet, and he had said nothing. He had enjoyed his steak and his open bar, paid for by her, while she sat on a folding chair. I'm leaving, she said, her voice calm.
What? Why?
It's the best man's speech next. It's going to be hilarious. I was sat in the kitchen, Michael, she said, finally letting a sliver of the pain she felt seep into her voice. Your sister put me at a table in the kitchen. Like hired help, like a problem to be hidden. Michael's face went pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked back toward the club, then at her. He knew. He had known. He had just chosen not to see it. It was probably just a mix-up with the seating chart, he stammered, the weak excuse falling flat. Ava would never. Bradley's mom is just a little particular, you know how she is. I know exactly how she is, Eleanor said. And now I know exactly how my children are. She unlocked her car door. I also know that I paid for this entire spectacle. Every cent. The venue, the food, the band, the photographer, the flowers. All of it. Michael's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying I've canceled it, she said, the word hanging in the air like a gunshot. The payments have been reversed. The contracts are void. You can't do that, Michael exclaimed, his voice rising in panic. Mom, there are 200 people in there. Ava will be humiliated. Ava chose to humiliate me, Eleanor replied, her voice trembling slightly for the first time. She chose to let her new family treat me like a servant after everything I sacrificed. She chose silence over standing up for me. You both did. She got into the driver's seat and rolled down the window. I am not destroying their day. I am simply taking back what was mine. They can have the wedding they paid for. She started the engine. Just as she was about to pull away, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Ava, likely just sent from the head table, A final, thoughtless insult from a daughter who assumed her mother would always be there to absorb it. Asterisk Ava. Mom, where are you? Bradley's mom wants to know why the champagne is running out. Can you go check with the bar manager? Asterisk. Eleanor read the text, and for the first time all night, a genuine, peaceful smile touched her lips. She turned off her phone, put the car in drive, and left her daughter's wedding behind. Part 4. The Aftermath. The fallout was spectacular. By the time the band was supposed to start their first set, their leader had received the cancellation notice. The photographer, a family friend Eleanor had hired personally, quietly packed up his equipment, offering only a sympathetic nod to a bewildered Ava. The caterers, having been paid only for the food already consumed, began clearing the tables, refusing to serve the wedding cake. Chaos ensued. Bradley, who had assumed his father's name was enough to guarantee a lavish affair, stood speechless as his mother shrieked at the venue manager. Richard, who had contributed nothing, tried to write a check for the remaining balance, only to have it declined due to his own maxed-out credit line. It was Ava who crumbled the most. The truth of what she had done, the seating chart she had personally approved, the quiet agreement with Bradley's mother to keep Eleanor out of sight for the photos, the betrayal of the one person who had never let her down, settled over her like a physical weight. A week later, Eleanor was in her garden, planting peonies, when a car pulled into her driveway. It was Ava, alone, her face pale and tear-streaked, without her wedding ring. The marriage to Bradley had lasted exactly 5 days, collapsing under the financial scandal and the public revelation of his family's cruelty and Ava's own complicity. Ava walked up the garden path, her designer heels sinking into the soft soil. She stopped a few feet from her mother, her body trembling. "He left me," Ava whispered. "His family said I was damaged goods. They said I was just like you." Eleanor put down her trowel and wiped her hands on her jeans. She looked at her daughter, not with anger, but with a deep, weary sadness. "No, Ava," she said quietly. "You're not like me. I spent my whole life making sure you never had to feel the pain of being cast aside. I built a business. I paid for your life, and I loved you so much I was willing to sit in a kitchen for you, if only you had shown me the smallest amount of respect." She stood up, facing her daughter directly. "You sat me in the back." I smiled. "I stayed quiet. And then I canceled everything, not to punish you, but to finally stop punishing myself." She took a step forward, taking her daughter's trembling hands in her own. "I will always love you, but the days of me being a silent, invisible ATM are over. If you want a relationship with me, you will have to do it without my money and with a hell of a lot more respect than you've shown me tonight or any night before it." Ava broke down, sobbing into her mother's shoulder, the words, "I'm sorry," dissolving into incoherent cries. Eleanor held her, not with the fierce, protective grip of the past, but with the calm, measured strength of a woman who had finally set her own boundaries. She didn't know if her daughter could change, if their relationship could be rebuilt from the ashes of such a public betrayal. But for the first time in a long time, Eleanor Vance held her head high, knowing that whatever happened next, she would not be relegated to the back of anyone's life again. The healing would be long and uncertain, but her dignity was no longer up for negotiation.